Hello and welcome to this week's edition of World Today, where we will be focusing on the decades-old conflict in the Caucasus. The Nagorno-Karabakh conflict between Armenia and Azerbaijan is back in news. A major military offensive by Azerbaijan led to the recapturing of this region from Armenian separatist forces, which ended with a ceasefire. But this conflict is also not without a cost to human lives and massive human suffering. The Nagorno-Karabakh conflict, due to its strategic significance, drew the attention of global powers, particularly the West, including the United States of America and regional players. It is a complex geopolitical issue that has roots extending back many decades. Let's take a look at the conflict and what has happened up until now.
This is the human cost of war. Thousands of ethnic Armenians have fled their homes in the breakaway enclave of Nagorno-Karabakh, heading for Armenia, where many face an uncertain future. The border area on the Armenian side at Kornizor was busy with road traffic as vehicles streamed across the frontier.
It was horrible. Children were hungry and they were crying. Yes, a child fainted. She has high body temperature, so we gave her some medication. We ran away just to survive, that is all.
The third war over Nagorno-Karabakh, the long-disputed Armenian enclave within Azerbaijan, ended almost as soon as it began. On September 19, Azerbaijani forces launched a military offensive in what is called an anti-terror operation. With no means of support from neighboring Armenia and after an effective 9-month blockade, the ethnic Armenian forces soon gave in, leading to a truce brokered by Russia. But the people of Karabakh feel betrayed by Armenia and by the West. One such instance was when US aid chief reached the area to oversee the refugee crisis. She was heckled for America's inaction.
Our folks in Azerbaijan, or go back to your country. We don't care. Stop the lies.
Apart from Russia, EU also held talks with Armenia. The focus of the West is to see stability in the region and probably maintain status quo rather than support Armenia.
Number one, we want to see the ceasefire maintained. Number two, we want to see humanitarian needs addressed. That means keeping the Lachin corridor open. It means ensuring that humanitarian supplies can come in. And that it means an international monitoring mission to ensure that humanitarian needs are addressed. Something that the Secretary had directly pushed the President for, and we're glad to see his having agreed to it. And we will work with our allies and partners in the coming days to flesh out exactly what that mission will look like.
However, Russia, the main stakeholder in the region, lashed out at Western interference in the South Caucasus.
Brussels is now imposing its mediation services on Azerbaijan and Armenia, and together with Washington bringing destabilization to the South Caucasus. The Russian peacekeeping contingent will contribute in every possible way to this.
Under the terms of the truce outlined by Azerbaijani and Russia, which has peacekeepers on the ground, local Karabakh forces must commit to being completely disbanded as well as disarmed.
Azerbaijan doesn't have any military goals and objectives on the sovereign territory of the Republic of Armenia. That's not completely out of Azerbaijan's agenda. Azerbaijan is only ensuring its sovereignty and territorial integrity, and also recent counter-terrorism actions on the ground were very limited and local by nature, and it was a very short period of time that has been engaged. It was about neutralizing military infrastructure on the sovereign territory of Azerbaijan with all its military components.
However, with Azerbaijan taking control of the region, majority of Armenian ethnic population are fleeing for fear of ethnic cleansing.
The exodus of Armenians from Nagorno-Karabakh continues as a result of Azerbaijan's ethnic cleansing policy. Analysis shows that in the coming days there will be no more Armenians left in Nagorno-Karabakh. This is a direct act of ethnic cleansing and deprivation of a homeland, as we have been telling the international community for a long time.
Nagorno-Karabakh is internationally recognized as part of Azerbaijan, but its population of 120,000 is overwhelmingly ethnic Armenian. Earlier, a significant flare-up in fighting began in late September 2020 and continued for 44 days. The fighting ended with a Russian brokered peace agreement on November 9, 2020. Bureau Report, India Today.
And joining me on Spotlight this weekend is Azerbaijan's ambassador to India, Ambassador Ashraf Sheikhaliev. Thank you so much for joining us, Ambassador. The situation on the ground looks quite dire when it comes to the Armenian ethnic population leaving and moving towards Armenia. What's the situation on the ground when it comes to aid, when it comes to allowing people to leave and opening up of the Lachin corridor?
Lachin corridor has been opened. There was no blockade of the Lachin corridor. There is a checkpoint there because for 2.5 years Armenia has been abusing the Lachin corridor and bringing the weaponry, rotating its illegally held in the territory of Azerbaijan almost 10,000 troops, and also smuggling out the natural resources of Azerbaijan illegally exploited from our territories. People are leaving now, and there are videos of multiple people leaving Armenian region, leaving the territory of Karabakh region of Azerbaijan. And on the Lachin corridor, there are journalists, Azerbaijani journalists, and they are asking questions to those people. And the questions are simple human questions. Did someone force you to go? And the multiple answers are no. Why are you leaving Azerbaijan? And the answers are, everyone is leaving and I'm also leaving. Will you return back to Azerbaijan? Some say we don't know. Some say we will see. There are answers that I'm going to my children and they're in Russian Federation, so I'll live there. So it is their choice, but those people who wish to return and live in Azerbaijani society can do it if they are not members of the families of the illegal troops held by Armenia till recently in the territory of Azerbaijan, if they did not commit any heavy crimes in the territory of Azerbaijan.
The ceasefire has only begun, but Armenia has already accused Azerbaijan of ethnic cleansing and that the ethnic cleansing has begun. What's your reaction to Armenia's allegations?
That is the smear campaign that Armenia is widely having against Azerbaijan. But people's reaction, the people, Armenian region people, it contradicts it. Because people say that, well, we lived in Azerbaijan before the conflict, we had friends, we visited Baku, we did not have any problems, and we will come. And we want to live like it was previously. Illegal regime created, the puppet regime created by Armenia in the territory of Azerbaijan, it held those people hostage to its political objectives. Now people will enjoy the same rights as any other person in Azerbaijan. They will be protected by legislation. They can return and live. Yesterday, the illegal regime announced that it is dissolving itself as of 1st January next year. And the same day, yesterday, the Migration Service of Azerbaijan opened the website reintegration.gov.az, and Armenian nationals who want to return back after leaving, they can apply. There is an email, there is phone numbers, and they can apply and become the citizens of Azerbaijan like any other citizen of any other nationality.
Okay, but what happens to those who surrendered or who have given up their arms? Will they also be allowed to take up Azerbaijani citizenship?
Those who surrendered, if it is Armenian illegally held troops, they, of course, will stay in Armenia. They are free to go to Armenia once they laid their weapons. But if they are nationals, Armenian original nationals living in Azerbaijan, in the Karabakh region, and did not commit heavy crimes, they can apply.
How lasting do you think this ceasefire is going to be? Is this almost a definite solution to the conflicts that we've seen for decades now? 4 phases, 3 conflicts. Is this now the end?
I think yes. The conflict is over. The illegal regime created by Armenia dissolves itself, and reintegration of Armenian society living in the Karabakh region will start. As for the bilateral relations between Armenia and Azerbaijan, I hope that the talks on the peace agreement will conclude by signing of this agreement, hopefully by the end of this year. And I look much forward that they will be finish the work on delimitation and demarcation of the state border between Armenia and Azerbaijan. With this, we will have lasting peace in the region finally.
When it comes to larger geopolitics, many within the ethnic Armenian population within Nagorno-Karabakh now are accusing the West, accusing various countries of not having stood by them. How do you see the geopolitics play between the West, Russia, all of them looking at Azerbaijan and Armenia, particularly the geostrategic position of Nagorno-Karabakh, resource-rich region, and wanting to have a play or a stake in that region?
It's a very good question, because geopolitics and interests of big powers, they join in the region. Region is very important and attractive. It is rich with natural resources. That is why it is important that the peace prevails there and lasting peace is established. And I hope that this will be realized through the peace agreement between Armenia and Azerbaijan.
Also, when it comes to access, why is there very limited or no access to United Nations? Some of the journalists find it very difficult to reach those areas. Is access a problem? Will the international bodies be allowed to go monitor what's happening on the ground as also journalists?
There is no problem to visit it. Only problem is the security and safety of the journalists. So they can visit it, and they should be applying for a visit to the region, to the authorities of Azerbaijan, and they can visit those territories, of course, so that their safety is not threatened.
Right. Finally, Ambassador, any conflict ends up with human stories and human catastrophe. In this, we are seeing a lot of movement. A lot of people are leaving their loved ones, those they buried back home, leaving them behind and going to Armenia. What do you have to say to them? What do you have to say to those who think they're going to become a minority in Azerbaijan and they don't feel safe? And the human story of so many people losing their homes, their land, their family.
Yeah, of course, that is a difficult period, but reconstruction, rehabilitation of those territories would allow them to live in a much safer and prosperous society, like any other minority is living in Azerbaijan. But having said this, there is also the people, Azerbaijani origin, who lived in Armenia, the Western Azerbaijani community. So they also were forced, some 300,000 people, to leave 3 decades ago their lands, and their rights were also infringed. So they have also right to return to their lands, to their fathers' houses, and live there in Armenia. This is human stories, of course, and the governments have to work to realize the rights of their civilians.
Will we continue to see Russian presence, military presence, to ensure stability in between Azerbaijan and Armenia, particularly in the Lachin corridor?
Russian peacekeepers, they are staying for 5 years till 2025. They're temporarily staying in the territory of Azerbaijan. In the Lachin corridor, the corridor itself, it is under control of the border guard of Azerbaijan. There is a checkpoint there, and whoever is passing through is controlled by the relevant government of Azerbaijan. Having said this, I should say that repeatedly we applied to Armenian side in order to have cooperation and smooth interaction of information between relevant government agencies, including the border services, border guard services and customs services of Azerbaijan and Armenia. And this was not successful. We did not receive, they did not reciprocate our invitations, and I hope that in future we'll have such cooperation.
Just speaking about the future, do you hope for normalization of ties between Azerbaijan and Armenia should there be a permanent resolution to the Nagorno-Karabakh question?
Nagorno-Karabakh question is now over. Now issue is internal issue of Azerbaijan, reintegration of its population of Armenian region in the society of Azerbaijan. It is also the issue of reconstruction, rehabilitation of the liberated territories, including the construction and development in the territories where Armenian population is living. So they will be living in much better environment, in much prosperous environment than they used to live.
On that note, Ambassador Ashraf Sheikh Aliyev, many thanks for joining us here on India Today.
Thank you so much.
There is no end to the ongoing tension between China and the Philippines. Philippines Coastal Guard recently released a video where the Filipinos were seen cutting down the floating barrier installed by the Chinese to prevent Philippines fishermen from entering the South China Sea. Take a look at this full report.
Philippines fishermen executed a special operation and cut down a 300-meter floating barrier installed by China in the South China Sea. According to the Philippines Coast Guard, they went ahead with the mission in compliance with the order given by the Philippines President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. The operation follows after China had installed a floating barrier to prevent Filipino fishing boats from entering the disputed area in the Scarborough Shoal in the South China Sea. The fishermen had earlier expressed their anger after the installation of the barriers. Meanwhile, Beijing reacted strongly and warned the Philippines not to provoke.
China firmly upholds the sovereignty and maritime rights and interests, and we advise the Philippines not to make provocation and make troubles. We are not looking for trouble, but what we'll do is to continue defending the maritime territory of the Philippines and the rights of our fishermen, who have been fishing in those areas for hundreds of years. So I can't understand why that has changed.
China claims to almost have 90% of the South China Sea area, which had angered not just the Philippines but other countries like Vietnam, Taiwan, Malaysia and Brunei. China backed their claims by placing naval patrols at the disputed areas. The tension between China and the Philippines have grown since Ferdinand Marcos Jr. became the president, who restored the security ties of Philippines with the US and gave permission to the American troops to access the Philippine military base. With Neha Kumari, Bureau Report, India Today.
Now, a first since 2013, South Korea displayed its military weaponry and soldiers along with the US troops marching through the streets of Seoul. The South Korean president sent a strong message to the Democratic People's Republic of Korea that use of nuclear weapons by North Korea will see the end of its regime.
In a rare show of military might, South Korea showcased its weapons, tanks and missiles during the 75th Armed Forces Day. thousands of South Korean soldiers paraded through the streets of Seoul, commemorating the foundation of the armed forces. This march, a first since 2013, happened as tensions rise in the Korean Peninsula and the growing clout among the US, Japan and South Korea. South Korean President Yoon Suk-yeol, in his address, warned that if North Korea uses nuclear weapons, then its regime will be brought to an end.
If North Korea provokes, the military will immediately retribute based on the practical combat capabilities and firm military readiness. If North Korea uses nuclear weapons, its regime will be brought to an end by an overwhelming response from the ROK-US alliance.
People cheered and waved flags on a rainy day as South Korean soldiers, along with 300 US troops, marched past the Gwanghwamun Square. Meanwhile, Kim Song, North Korea's UN ambassador, defended his country's acceleration in building self-defense capabilities.
The reckless act of the US and its foreign forces are exerting irreversibly destructive impact on the regional, political, military situation and security structure as they drive the situation of the Korean Peninsula into actual armed conflict. Given the prevailing circumstances, the DPRK is urgently required to further accelerate the build-up of self-defense capabilities to defend itself impregnably.
Weeks before, North Korean leader Kim Jong-un had visited Russia in an armored train and had received gifts ranging from a set of modern, lightweight body armor designed for assault operations to one-way attack drones and Uranium-25 reconnaissance drone. This had rattled the international community and raised alarms in South Korea and the US. North Korea's missile launches have also raised alarms from time to time. With Mahashweta Lala, Bureau Report, India Today.